June 14th, 1999, Liverpool, England. The Grapes pub, 8:01 p.m. A man walked through the door, alone, wearing a simple jacket. No entourage, no cameras. The pub held maybe 50 people, locals, regulars, nursing pints, watching football on the telly. Nobody looked up, just another customer, another face in the crowd. He ordered a pint, sat in the corner, stared at the small stage, empty except for a microphone and an old guitar. The bartender recognized him first, dropped a glass, shattered on the floor. "Is that?" he whispered to the waitress. "No, can't be." But it was. Paul McCartney in a tiny Liverpool pub on a Tuesday night for no reason anyone could understand. And what he did in the next hour, what he played for those 50 strangers, became the most intimate concert of his life. This is the story of the night Paul went home and remembered why he'd ever picked up a guitar. If you want to witness the moments when legends return to their roots, when stadiums become pub stages, tap that subscribe button, because this story is about going home, really home. June 1999. Paul McCartney was at the peak of his solo career again. 57 years old, knighted by the Queen, married to Heather Mills, living the dream. But something was wrong, something he couldn't name, couldn't fix. He'd been touring stadiums, playing to 60,000 people every night, hearing the roar, feeling the love, but it felt hollow, empty, like performing for ghosts. The bigger the crowd, the smaller he felt, the louder the applause and the more silent his heart became. He was Paul McCartney, but he didn't know who Paul was anymore. So he did something he hadn't done in 30 years. He went home. Not to London, not to his mansion, but home. Liverpool, the city that made him. He drove himself. No driver, no security. Just Paul in a rental car, heading north. The M6 motorway, the same road he'd driven as a teenager, when the Beatles were nobody, when they were just 4 kids from Liverpool with impossible dreams. He arrived in Liverpool at sunset, the city golden in the evening light, drove through the streets of his childhood, Forthlin Road, his old house, where he'd written songs with John, the Cavern Club, boarded up now, a shrine to what was, not what is. Penny Lane, still there, still real, but different, older, sadder. Everything had changed. Or maybe Paul had changed, and the city stayed the same. Have you ever gone back to where you started and realized you can't go home? Paul felt that, driving through Liverpool, looking for something he'd lost. He parked the car near the docks, walked the waterfront, hands in pockets, anonymous in the twilight. A few people glanced at him, but in Liverpool, everyone looks a bit like Paul McCartney. It's that Liverpool face, that Scouse attitude. Paul was just one of many. He found himself at the Grapes pub, a tiny place on Matthew Street, near where the Cavern used to be. Paul had never been here. It hadn't existed in his Beatles days, but it felt right, felt authentic. Through the window, he saw people laughing, drinking, living, being normal, and something in Paul ached for that normalness, for being unknown, for being just Paul. He pushed open the door, walked inside. The Grapes was exactly what Paul needed. Small, dark, worn, real. 50 people maybe, locals mostly, dock workers, shopkeepers, students. The kind of pub where everybody knows everybody, except nobody knew Paul. Or if they did, they were too polite, too Liverpool, to make a fuss. Paul walked to the bar, ordered a pint of bitter. The bartender barely looked at him. £4, mate. Paul paid, took his drink, found a corner table, sat down, and for the first time in decades, nobody asked for an autograph. Nobody took a photo. Nobody wanted anything. He was just a man, drinking a pint, in a pub, being nobody. It was glorious. The bartender, Tommy, 50 years old, lifelong Liverpudlian, walked past Paul's table, stopped, looked again, his eyes widening. "Bloody hell," he muttered under his breath. Paul looked up, caught his eye, put a finger to his lips. "Shh." Tommy nodded. Understood. Liverpool code. You don't rat out your own. But his hands shook as he poured the next pint, because Paul McCartney was in his pub, drinking his beer, sitting in the corner like any other punter. Paul finished his pint, ordered another, settled in, listening to the conversations around him. Football, always football. Who was playing well? Who was rubbish? Work, the docks closing, jobs disappearing, Liverpool changing, families, kids, grandkids, the stuff of life, the stuff Paul rarely heard anymore. In his world, people talked about sales figures, chart positions, Grammy nominations. But here, in the Grapes, people talked about life, real life. And Paul remembered, this is where he came from. This is who he was. Before the fame, before the Beatles, before everything, just a Liverpool lad, son of a nurse and a cotton salesman, trying to make sense of the world. What Paul saw next changed everything. In the corner of the Grapes, barely visible in the dim light, was a small stage. Not even a proper stage, just a raised platform, 2 feet high, 4 feet wide, a microphone on a stand, an old acoustic guitar leaning against the wall, dusty, forgotten, a sign above it, "Open Mic Tuesdays, all welcome." Paul stared at that stage, that pathetic little stage, smaller than his bathroom, more worn than his shoes, and he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Nervousness, real nervousness, not stadium nervousness, not what if I forget the words nervousness, but what if I'm not good enough nervousness. What if they don't like me nervousness? The nervousness of a kid playing his first gig, hoping people care, hoping music matters. Tommy caught Paul staring at the stage, walked over. "You play?" Tommy asked, knowing the answer, but giving Paul the choice. "Used to," Paul said, his Liverpool accent thickening, becoming 18 again. "Long time ago." "Stage is open," Tommy said. "Nobody signed up tonight. Be ashamed to waste it." Paul looked around the pub. 50 people, none of them paying attention, lost in their own lives. If he played, they might recognize him, might scream, might ruin the moment, or they might just listen, might just hear Paul, not Paul McCartney, just Paul. "Can I play one song?" Paul asked. "Just one?" Tommy smiled. "Play as many as you want, mate. We don't close till midnight." Paul stood up, walked to the stage, legs shaking slightly. Ridiculous for a man who'd played Shea Stadium. But this was different. This was home. This mattered more. He picked up the guitar, old Yamaha, out of tune. Strings rusty, but solid. Started tuning it by ear, the way he'd learned 50 years ago, when guitars were treasures, not tools. The pub noise continued. Nobody noticed the man on stage, tuning a guitar, preparing to play. Paul finished tuning, sat on the stool, adjusted the microphone, tapped it twice. Testing, 1, 2. A few people looked up, glanced at the stage, then back to their pints, their conversations. Paul took a breath, closed his eyes, and started playing. Paul played Blackbird, his song, written in 1968, about freedom, about hope, about rising from darkness. But he played it differently, slower, softer, like a lullaby, like a prayer. His fingers found the chords, muscle memory from 1,000 performances. But this time, it was personal. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Take these broken wings and learn to fly. His voice cracked on the first line, emotion choking him, but he pushed through. All your life, you were only waiting for this moment to arrive. One by one, conversations died. People stopped talking, turned to look. Who was this guy? Where did that voice come from? Why did it sound so familiar? A woman near the bar gasped, covered her mouth. Oh my God. A man squinted, leaned forward. No way, that can't be. But Paul didn't open his eyes, didn't acknowledge the recognition, just kept playing, kept singing, because for the first time in decades, he wasn't performing, he was sharing, he was being. The pub fell completely silent, 50 people frozen, holding their breath. Some people started crying, not screaming, not hysteria, just tears, quiet tears, because they weren't hearing Paul McCartney. They were hearing Liverpool. They were hearing home. They were hearing the voice of their childhood, their youth, their lost dreams. Paul was one of them, from these streets, from this city, and he'd never really left. What happened next? Nobody planned, nobody expected. Paul finished Blackbird, the final note hanging in the air, fading into silence. For 3 seconds, nothing, complete stillness. Then applause, not wild, not screaming, just honest, appreciative, real. Paul opened his eyes, saw 50 faces looking at him, some crying, some smiling, all understanding. They knew. They'd figured it out. But they weren't freaking out. They were Liverpool. And Liverpool doesn't scream at its own. Thank you, Paul said into the microphone, his voice small, vulnerable. Been a while since I played a room this size. Someone laughed, breaking the tension. Better than the Echo Arena, this. More laughter. The room relaxing. Paul relaxing. Can I do another? Paul asked, like he needed permission, like he wasn't Paul McCartney. Play all night, lad, someone shouted from the back. We're not going anywhere, another voice added. And suddenly, the Grapes pub wasn't just a pub anymore. It was sacred ground. Paul played Let It Be, his mother's song, Mary, written in a dream, sung from the heart. And this time, the pub sang with him, softly, reverently. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. 50 voices, rough Liverpool voices, dock worker voices, grandmother voices, all singing, not performing, not showing off, just being together, sharing music, sharing memory. Paul's eyes filled with tears, because this was what he'd been missing. Not the stadiums, not the adulation, but this connection, real human connection. He played yesterday and watched grown men cry. He played here, there, and everywhere and watched couples hold hands. He played Penny Lane and everyone sang because everyone knew Penny Lane. It was their street too. An hour passed. Paul played 15 songs, no breaks, no water, just music. His voice grew hoarse. His fingers ached, but he couldn't stop, didn't want to stop, because for one night in a tiny pub, he was home, really home. Finally, Paul played one last song. This one's for Liverpool, he said, for the city that made me, that made all of us. He played In My Life, John's song, but Paul's memories too. There are places I remember all my life, though some have changed. And 50 people sang with him because they all had places, all had memories, all had Liverpool in their blood. Some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. The emotion in the room was overwhelming. Decades of history, of loss, of love, all compressed into 4 minutes. When the song ended, when Paul played the final chord, silence again. Then someone started chanting, "Liverpool, Liverpool, Liverpool," and everyone joined, not screaming, just stating, claiming, honoring. Paul stood up, bowed, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you," he said. "Thank you for letting me come home." Paul stayed for another hour, not playing, just being. People came up to him, not for autographs, just to talk, to say thank you, to share stories. "My dad saw you at the Cavern in 1961, one man said. "He told me you'd make it, and you did." "My mom used to sing me Yesterday when I couldn't sleep," a woman shared. "She died last year. Hearing you play it meant everything." A young boy, maybe 12, approached shyly. "My teacher says you're the greatest. Are you?" Paul smiled. "Nah, lad, I'm just a musician, like thousands of others. Just got lucky." "But you're from Liverpool," the boy said, as if that explained everything. And Paul realized it did. It explained everything. Tommy the bartender refused Paul's money. "Your money's no good here, Paul." "Nah, mate," Paul insisted, pulling out his wallet. "I drank your beer. I pay. Liverpool rules." He left 200 pounds on the bar. For the next 50 rounds, on me. The pub erupted in cheers. To Paul, to Liverpool, to the Beatles. Paul waved, walked to the door, stopped, turned back. "Thanks for not screaming," he said. "Thanks for just being Liverpool." Tommy nodded. "We know who we are, Paul, and we know who you are. One of us. Always will be." Paul walked out of the Grapes pub at 11 p.m. The night air hit him, cool, salty, pure Liverpool. He stood on Matthew Street, looking around, seeing ghosts. John, George, Ringo, the young Beatles, the kids they'd been. They'd stood here, right here, 50 years ago, before fame, before everything. Just 4 Liverpool lads, with guitars and dreams, trying to matter. And for one night, Paul had been that kid again, playing for 50 people, just wanting them to listen. No stadium, no lights, no spectacle, just music, pure and simple. He got in his car, drove back to London, back to his life, but something had changed, something fundamental. He remembered why he'd started, why he'd picked up a guitar at 14, why he'd written songs, not for fame, not for money, but for this, for connection, for being human with other humans, for playing in a tiny pub, for 50 people, and mattering, really mattering. The story leaked. Of course it did. 50 people can't keep a secret. Paul McCartney's secret pub gig, the headlines read. But the people who were there, they didn't talk to press, didn't sell their story. They just treasured it, privately, personally, a gift that couldn't be shared, only remembered. Paul never confirmed it publicly, never denied it. When asked, he'd smile. "I go to pubs sometimes, like anyone else, nothing special." But his eyes would shine because he knew, and the 50 people knew, it was special, the most special night of his career. The night he stopped being Paul McCartney and just became Paul. Today, the Grapes pub still exists, still hosts open mic nights. The guitar Paul played is framed on the wall, a small plaque underneath. He came home, June 14th, 1999. Young musicians play that stage now, hoping to be discovered, hoping to matter. And sometimes late at night, if you listen carefully, you can hear it, a faint echo. Blackbird singing in the dead of night, just a memory, or maybe a ghost, or maybe just Liverpool, keeping its own. Paul McCartney, the boy from Liverpool who became a legend, learned on June 14th, 1999, that legends need homes too, need places where nobody screams, where nobody wants anything, where you can just be. A man with a guitar, playing for 50 people, in a tiny pub. That's all he'd ever wanted, from the very beginning. And for one perfect night, he got it. Thank you, Liverpool, for never forgetting where he came from. And thank you, Paul, for never forgetting either. For coming home, for playing one more song, for being human. Always human. Always Liverpool. Always. Just Paul.